Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. It is such an honor to be here with you today, and I'm humbled and inspired to share this space with you. I've spent the last 22 years of my life working every day to heal from the traumatic experiences of my childhood, to overcome the self-limiting beliefs that for so many years overpowered and prevented me from owning my voice, from fully loving myself and enjoying my life. So today, as I stand here in this room filled to the brim with superheroes, owning my voice, I'm not only reminded of how far I've come, but more importantly, I'm reminded that anything is possible with love, patience, courage, and determination. When I was 4 years old, I was sexually abused for the first time. At 4 years old, I didn't know what child sexual abuse was. I only knew that what my Uncle Howard was doing to me was extremely painful. I loved him and I trusted him, so I believed that if he was inflicting this pain on me, it must have been because I was awful, and I must have done something to deserve it. And in that moment, the world became a dark, evil place, and I felt dirty, disgusting, and unlovable. In that moment, I was unwillingly plucked from the innocence and beauty of my childhood and spiked harshly into a world of physical and emotional pain, confusion, paranoia, and fear. In that moment, my Uncle Howard told me, "If you tell anyone, I'll kill you." Over the next 4 years, I was sexually abused on multiple occasions by my Uncle Howard, my Uncle Larry, and my cousin Stuart. With each rape, I felt increasingly numb, worthless, and alienated in the shell of my body. I wasn't going to tell a soul about what had happened to me. I was terrified of the consequences. One day, my cousin Stuart, who was living with us at the time, summoned me to his room in the attic. And as I walked up the stairs to meet him, I saw my little sister exit his room. I slowed my pace, and as I continued to walk up the stairs towards her, she began to walk down the stairs towards me. I could hear the repressed squeakiness of her sobs, and as our eyes locked, I could see her tears. I could see the flushed redness in her cheeks. We stopped and looked at each other, and while we didn't exchange any words, I knew in that moment that my cousin was hurting her too. I was only 7 years old. My sister was 4. Up until that point, I believed that my abusers were hurting me and only me because I was dirty, disgusting, and unlovable. But my sister, my beautiful, sweet baby sister, she was the most beautiful person in my life, and I couldn't understand how or why anyone could hurt her. And despite the fact that I was no longer able to see my beauty, hers was undeniable. It was in that moment that I finally realized that what my abusers were doing was wrong. My sister didn't deserve to be hurt, and maybe, just maybe, I didn't deserve to be hurt either. My love for my sister catapulted me through my fear. And that night, I hinted to my mom that Stuart had a secret club in his room where he and my sister did bad things. And though my sister was too afraid to speak, she eventually drew a picture for my mom. And with that, the impenetrable brick wall of secrets suffered its first crack. I felt like my abusers could see every step that I took, like they could hear every thought in my mind, and that they would come to punish me just for thinking about telling. I suffered from insomnia, and quickly I became suicidal. I feared that death from my Uncle Howard would be 1,000,000 times more painful than if I just jumped out of a moving car. So I did. Shortly after that incident, I started seeing a psychiatrist. Dr. Lustig was the first of many people outside of my immediate family who helped to save my life. He prescribed medicine that helped me sleep, and once I was rested and able to reclaim some stability, I finally began to open up. Like my sister, I started by drawing pictures, and soon words followed. And with that, I was able to unchain myself from the awful secrets that had weighed me down. I felt so safe in Dr. Lustig's office. I could breathe easier, and it was easier for me to smile. And as time went by, I felt like the nightmare was further and further away. I was only 8 years old at the time, and what I didn't realize then was that for the next 9 years of my life, I would be in and out of courtrooms testifying against all 3 of my abusers. I remember walking into Detective Oren's office for the first time. His office was decorated with toys, and he made sure to look me in the eyes. He didn't talk down to me, but instead he met me at my level. And as we played together with his toys, I felt respected and safe enough to open up as he interviewed me. He was calm, confident, and respectful, powerful, but clearly on my side. I was terrified to face my abusers in court, but luckily, Dr. Lustig and Detective Oren had my back. Weekly sessions with Dr. Lustig helped to remind me that I was safe, and Detective Oren was the muscle in court. Before each hearing, he would ask me how I was feeling. He wanted to make sure that I felt protected. And I'll never forget, there was one time where I felt really, really terrified. And he looked me in the eyes, he crouched down a little bit, he pulled back his suit jacket to reveal his pistol. He looked at me in the eyes, he said, "Yeah, you could try something stupid, but he's not going to get very far. Don't worry, you're safe." That was pretty cool. He was a badass. My uncle Larry was sentenced to 11 years in prison. My cousin Stuart realized that a full trial would not be in his best interest, and he pled guilty, spending 11 months behind bars. Larry and Stuart were brought to justice by 2000, and as justice was slowly being served, more secrets were uncovered. My dad, Henry, revealed that as a child, he was sexually abused by his brothers, Larry and Howard. Larry eventually revealed that when he was a young child, Howard had sexually abused him. And finally, in pleading guilty, Stuart also revealed that when he was a child, his father, Larry, sexually abused him. This was multi-generational abuse that led all the way back to Howard, and it was now time to bring him to justice. But Howard presented a new set of challenges. Howard was the first Jewish cantor to ever sing for the Pope at the Vatican, and was the cantor of the most prestigious synagogue in Manhattan, Temple Emmanuel. And the members of his congregation funded his defense team, which consisted of 4 attorneys. But in the preliminary hearing, his attorneys quickly learned that I was not going to be manipulated or confused. I was battle-tested from the first 2 cases, and with the support I had around me, I felt confident and safe to stand my ground. After my strong showing at the preliminary hearing, their strategy was to delay as much as they could in the hopes of tiring me out before we got to a trial. And though I tried to move forward with my life, that unknown court date lingered over me like a dark cloud. Risa Furman, the district attorney of Montgomery County, fought for me every day. She wasn't intimidated by Howard's massive legal team, and she never lost her drive to see my case through. By the time Howard's team had used up their last delay tactic, I was almost 17 years old. Out of moves, they asked for a plea bargain. I had a decision to make. For so many years, it was the thought of Howard behind bars that kept me pushing forward. But after nearly 7 years of revisiting the details of my abuse for prosecution, on top of the 4 years of actual abuse, I was ready to move on with my life. After everything that I had been through, I didn't want to take a chance that Howard could walk away from this without taking responsibility for what he had done. In exchange for dropping the felony charges, he pled guilty to 5 child sexual abuse misdemeanors and received 12 years of probation. Howard's singing career was over, and so was his multi-generational lie. At the hearing, I got to read my victim impact statement, and I told him that I wasn't afraid of him anymore, and that the world would now know that he was a child abuser. After 13 years of battling to reclaim my life, the war was finally over. A year later, I moved to Montana, studied film production at Montana State University, and for the first time in over 14 years, I got to experience life without abuse being the primary focus of my existence. I fly fished the blue ribbon trout streams of Montana, hiked countless peaks, and got to learn more about what brought me joy in life. I got to refocus myself and see that despite a brutal childhood, I had my whole life ahead of me. Shortly after graduating from MSU, about 4 years ago, I got a job assisting on an edit for a National Geographic television show. This was incredible. I poured everything that I had into this amazing opportunity, and after I finished one episode, they asked me to work on another. This was like a dream come true for me. And then it all hit me all at once while I was sitting in that editing bay. I realized how blessed I was to be sitting in that chair. I felt so deeply grateful that I was sitting in that chair after everything that had happened in my life. Grateful to live in such a beautiful place with awesome friends, an exciting job, and an amazing future ahead of me. I realized that if I didn't go back and share my story from this place of gratitude, I'd be wasting an incredible opportunity to make a deeply meaningful impact on this world, one that could potentially help millions of people. I wanted to create a film that could support the millions of survivors who are working every day to reclaim their voice, to reclaim ownership of their lives, to know that they're not alone and that what happened to them is not their fault. I wanted to invite the world to have a conversation about what can be done to help present-day survivors while working to create awareness and resources to help protect future generations of children. Standing here in this room today, I'm reminded that I am not alone in my mission. Each and every one of you inspires me and gives me hope. I have no doubt that through the duration of this conference, we will all grow and evolve from the plethora of knowledge that is available to us. I also believe that there will be moments through this marathon of a conference where we're going to feel emotionally exhausted. It's hard to wake up every day and face what seems like a never-ending uphill battle against child abuse. And yet that's exactly what we've done. Something inside of us drives us to keep pushing forward, for justice, for a shift that alters the lives and well-being of these children for the better. It is challenging to accept that 1 out of every 3 girls and 1 out of every 5 boys are sexually abused before they're 18. That for every child that comes forward, there are 10 more that are still trapped in the prison of their fear and isolated in the pain of their silence. It is challenging to accept that so many abusers hide behind the stigma and shame that works to keep a tight lid on the truth. And yet, despite the challenges that we face with this battle, today, in this room, at this conference, we stand together, united in our unwavering commitment to do everything that we can to protect these children and to educate ourselves and grow in the process. Collectively, we are shining a beautiful, bright light onto one of the darkest and most prolific social epidemics of our time. At the edge of every shadow, there is light. And with our work here over the next 4 days, we not only have the opportunity to push back the edge of that shadow, but we also have an opportunity to acknowledge, embrace, and celebrate how far we've already come. In sharing our stories of success, we can remind each other that as a team, we have already made a huge impact on countless lives. If ever you doubt your power or your ability to make a difference, I ask you to remember that boy. That boy was naked, cold, and afraid at age 4, already facing a climb of Everest-esque proportions. At the top was his sanity and his wholeness, and he didn't even know if he could stand up. At age 7, he wanted to die. He didn't believe that he could ever be whole again, that seeing beauty, experiencing joy, or feeling love could ever be possible again. And yet, with the help of parents who loved him, a psychiatrist that gave that boy his best, a detective that went above and beyond what was asked of him by the county, and a prosecutor that would not be intimidated by a high-profile case, that boy was able to put one foot in front of the other, and step by step, he kept moving up that mountain. And less than 20 minutes ago, that boy stepped up to this podium to share his strength, his courage, and his gratitude with you. I am standing here today because of the human being that I have always been. But I am also standing here today because of the team of superheroes who fought for me as I regained my strength. And while I know that each and every one of you have made tremendous impacts on the lives of children in your respective communities, I am also aware that many of you don't get to see cases from start to finish. That after cases conclude, many of you don't hear from those children again or get an update on how they are doing or what they are doing with their lives. What your contribution meant to them. So today, on behalf of the countless children that each and every one of you has supported, I want to thank you. Thank you for helping us put one foot in front of the other as we work to keep pushing forward, for helping us start the journey of healing, for reminding us that we are not alone as we testified against the men and women who nearly took our lives, for being living examples of trustworthy adults, and for honoring us with your strength. Thank you for giving us every opportunity to experience joyful lives despite what we endured. What we have here in this room and at this conference is beautiful and special, meaningful and extremely powerful. I invite you to join me in fully feeling and absorbing all that is offered at this Crimes Against Children conference, because together, with love, patience, courage, and determination, we will protect future generations of children. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.